Alright everybody, so today we're gonna discuss the most exciting and interesting thing, which is top 10 Python coding questions for data handling or data analysis which are asked in data science interviews, right? So you must be getting question, how is it decided? So this is decided or shortlisted basis on my experience of giving the interview and my experience of taking the interviews, and same from my friends and some bit of the Google research as well, right? So basis on that I concluded the list of these 10 questions, though the list was quite longer, but out of that I tried to pick out the 10 questions which will be starting from the simpler one, and I will try to keep it something more than beginner, or maybe you can say intermediate or little bit of advanced as well. Okay, so this will be kind of mix of all the three levels, right? So all right, without wasting the time, let's try with the first question. So the first question out of 10, the first question is, find the count of variables by data types and subset for numeric variables only, right? So here is a data frame that we have. All right, this is called data df, right? It has many columns. Let me show you a shape of this. This is how you check the number of rows and columns. Not this is how, but this is how. Okay, so you see we have 50 columns and we need to figure out the data type for each of the columns, whether it's numeric, character, or whatever it is, and we need to create a second data frame, let's say data frame 2, in which we need to keep only numeric variables out of that. All right, so without wasting the time, so if you see, this has 3 questions into it. First one, find the count of variables, right? That is the first question. Second, subset for numeric variables, that is third question, rather I can say. Second question is this, third question is this, and first question is how to find the data type for each of the variables. So here is how you find the data type for each of the variables. df.dtypes. So here you got the list of all the variables. These are the list of variables and these are their data type. So if you see here, we have int data type, object, etc, etc. Now the point comes, how would you know how many float variables are there? So then you can take the count 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 etc, but that's going to be a very long task, so don't worry. Here is what we got, right? Count, you can say count values. All right, now I just have to type it. Let's see if that works. Okay, all right, here we go. Count value counts, sorry, value counts. I was using the incorrect function, sorry for that. All right, so here is what you get, right? So here if you see, float are 18 variables, int 16, and object 16. Object means the kind of character variables. Okay, now we need to subset for, this is how we know the count of variables by their data type. Okay, now we need to pick only numeric variables, which will be float and int, right? Both of these two kind we have to pick. So how can you do that? So for that, what you can say is, let's call the first data frame, right? So data frame name is, what do we call it? Okay, fine. So this is the original data frame, and on that we're gonna call this function select data types, and in that we're gonna call a parameter which is include, and in that you can provide the list of all the data types which you want to fetch. This is that simple. Okay, it's very interesting. Now first we require float 64, and then we require int 64. Don't worry, there is no sequencing. If you want to write int first, then you can do that as well. And let's see the top 10 variables or top 5 variables. Okay, so here we have the top 5 variables. Now let me show you the shape of this. Shape of this is just 34. So if you remember, previously we had somewhere more than 50 columns we had. Out of that, 34 are numeric, right? So let's just store it in a data frame called numvars. All right, and in that we will take head. So here is what we get. Now let's call this function on this, dtypes dot value counts. All right, it's taking time, so let me just quickly copy it from here and just put this over here. All right, so here you see float 18 and int 64, no object variable, right? So this is something which is generally used when you are doing the data analysis. It is used to explore the tables, and let's say if you want to work on only numeric variables, so this technique you can use to subset the data for numeric variables only. Thank you very much. See you in the next question.
Hello everybody. Now the second question is, find the top 5 highly correlated variables, right? So here again we have two questions into it, though it is one question, but here are two questions. In fact, more than two, but I'll consider it as two. First, you have to find the correlation of the variables available in a data frame, and then pick out the top 5 highly correlated variables. Let me try to help you understand with the example. Okay, so here is what we have. Here is the data frame which we have, which we created in the first data frame. On top of that, I have applied certain more filters. If you would like to understand what those filters are, you can just let me know into the comment section. Okay, now this is the data frame. The data frame name is defaulters data, and on this you need to find the correlation. To find the correlation, this is what you do. If you want to understand what correlation is, link is in the description section, just check that out. Okay, so here is what you get. Now out of this matrix, you see this is a big matrix. Out of this you need to figure out which are those 5 variables which are highly correlated. For example, if you see here, you are getting the correlation of 1, right? I will not explain you what is the considerable value of correlation and all those things. For that, you check out my correlation video. Okay, so over here you see both of these two are same variables, that's why it has the highest correlation, which is quite obvious. That's the diagonal. Okay, then you see amount, income, total, and with count children. So you see the correlation is 0.004, which is quite low. Now out of this matrix you need to figure out which are the 5 highly correlated. So how are we gonna do that? So for that, let me show you a simple example, so that I could give you the better understanding what exactly the question is asking you to do. Okay, so over here let's take some specific variables, some 2 or 3 variables I am taking, right? And now let me take it to the board. So over here, if you see, if you just try and notice over here, this particular value, right, is exactly what we have over here. This particular value is exactly what we have over here, and this is exactly what we have over here. Same goes for this, same goes for this, and same for this, right? So if you see, it is creating 2 triangles, right? Upper triangle and lower triangle. So what we need to do is, we can keep either one triangle and bring it in the form of actual data frame, and then pick out the top 5 highly correlated variables. Okay, so I just hope that it is clear. Here you see 2 triangles are available. We need to keep only one triangle. Either you can keep the lower one or the upper one. Let's try to do this in Jupyter Notebook directly. Okay, so over here now what I'll do is, I will just remove this and I'll create another data frame. Let's call it defcore. Okay, and over here I will say defaulters data dot core, and over here I'll show you the correlations. So you see here the correlation is. Now after that, I will show you, to achieve our task we require one library. That library is NumPy, right? So what you can do is, you can import NumPy as np. It's very simple. If you don't have it installed, you can just say pip install NumPy, that will be installed, right? Otherwise you can just check out my videos on NumPy installation. Now I have a complete series on NumPy. It's always beneficial to learn, right? So you can just check that out. Okay, there is one function which is called np-once. Okay, and in that what you do is, you create a matrix which will be having the value of 1 only. Let's say 4 by 4. First you need to give the dimension of the matrix. What is the dimension of matrix that you want to have? right? So let me say 4 by 4 I want to have. Okay, let's see if this works. You see here you have 4 columns and 4 rows, right? And then on top of that, what you can do is you can apply other functions. So same thing we are going to do with our data. So first thing which we're going to do is we will say np dot once, and what is the dimension that we need to give, so that we can give the dimension of this table itself, right? So if you see what is the dimension of this, so that you will get using shape function. So you see 31 by 31, right? So this is what the dimension is. So I'll just take this and I'll just print the data so that it will be visible for our use. Okay, np dot once. All right, so here you see we have 31 by 31 table, or maybe you can say array, right? And in that we have all written. Now there is one function which is called np dot try u. All right, try u. This is nothing but the upper triangle. In try u, try stands for triangle and u stands for upper, right? So to upper triangle, whatever values we have in upper triangle, we want to convert that with 1. We want to keep that with 1 rather, and lower one will be converted to 0. Let's do that. So this is how it's gonna look like, right? You see over here the upper triangles are converted to 1 and lowers are as 0. Now there is another thing which we're gonna say as type np dot bool. So this will just make it true or false, which will be helpful to filter the data, right? So on this, now we're gonna apply this thing on our data frame, which is df.core, and here we're gonna say where, and if when you do so, this is what you get. All right, so now you must be seeing that here at the lower triangle and the diagonal values are converted with missing, right? And upper triangle only have the value. Now the next step is to pick the upper triangle. How can we do that? So for that, first we need to unstack this data. So we're going to say unstack. This is the function which we have. All right, so you see now your data is looking like this. Previously you had metrics, now it is looking at in columns. You can see it in columns or something like that. Okay, now the next thing which we need to do is we're gonna say reset index to make it look completely like a data frame. Now you can see it's looking completely like a data frame, isn't it? Yeah, it is, I understand. Okay, so here is what we got. Now the next thing is we just rename these variables. Okay, so what we can do is we can say rename, and in that we can say columns, and here you need to supply a dictionary. All right, so here I use this thing to rename that. I pause the video just to write, so that it doesn't take much of the time. So that's what I did. Right now I'm just going to execute this, and here is what we see. So you see variables are renamed. Now there is one problem. This particular column would have some negative and some positive values, because here we are just concerned about the highest correlated values, right? So we can just make them absolute, right? So what we can do is we need to store this in our data frame. So let's call it def unstacked ckd. Okay, so this is what I am going to call this particular data frame, right? So if you see over here, so this data frame is created, and in that what we need to do is we need to make the correlation value as absolute values. Okay, so you don't necessarily need to do this. If you want to be with that, you can just be with that, but here I'm just going to do that to be on safer side. All right, and then again I will do this thing. So what gonna happen is all the negative values are converted to positive, and we would have the absolute values. Okay, now after this what we need to do is, you see here it has some nan values, because those are lower triangle and the diagonal. We need to get rid of them. So how you know the favorite function, which is called drop na, right? So here is what we got, and then you can use subset parameter, and in that you can pass on the variable which is called correlation, which is cor. Okay, so when you do so, what it will do is in correlation variable, wherever it finds nan, it will subset the data on that. And that because we need to filter for the highest correlated, so I'm going to sort the values, sort values by cor, and ascending equals to false, right? So what it will do is it will just sort the data. See what all it has done. It just removed the nan values and then sorted the data in descending order. Now out of this, we need to, let's just check the shape of this data, how many rows that we have over here. So you see 465 rows we have with 3 columns. Now we need to pick only 10 variables, right? That's what our problem statement was. So we can say head 10, right? So now here you got it. Now here you got the list of all those 10 variables which are highly correlated, and the correlation is between 0.58 to 0.99. These two variables are highly correlated, then this, and then this. So now further you can decide whether you want to keep these features into your data for further analysis or you want to drop that. All right, I just hope that you understood it. Just in case of any doubt, put that into the comment section. Thank you very much for watching.
Alright everybody, so here we got the third question, which says to observe the customer behavior after a couple of transactions, fetch the third transaction for each of the customer. So it's the credit. In this question we are going to have the credit card transactional data that will be for 1 month, and in that data you would have multiple entries for each of the customer, because whenever a customer does a transaction there will be an entry created in the data set. Let me show you a sample of this data. So here is how the data looks like. Okay, so you see tran is the data frame that we have, and in that we have 1000 records and 80 variables, right? 1000 rows and 18 variables. The data looks like this. In this 1000 record you might have multiple entries for each of the customer. For example, if you see Megan Megan has a transaction on 26th of June, and then he or she has another transaction on 21st of June, right? So you see this data is unsorted, but all that I wanted you to understand is in this data for each of the customer there are multiple entries, and this data is for June. Now here I explained you the data. Now let me try to help you understand the question first, and for that I will take a sample of this data. I have taken a sample of this data which looks something like this. Now if you observe over here, there are 3 customers into this data frame, right? And this is their transaction date. So for example, if you see Christiana, right? So 1 2 3 4 and 5 transactions we have for Christiana. And what we need to do is we need to pick the third transaction which we did. First transactions we did on 1st June, then 2nd June it comes, and then 4th, 5th, and then 10th. But you see this is not arranged. How would you pick that? So for that, first thing which you need to do is first sort this data. To sort the data, what you can do is you can sort this data on the both of these. You don't have to worry how to do in Excel, right? Now here I am just trying to help you understand the problem statement. Now once the data is sorted, what we need to do is we need to identify these transactions. If you see, these are the third transaction. If you are getting a question why do we need to do this, why the company would like to do, so company does this for multiple purposes, specifically for the behavior analysis. That could be for the purpose of fraud detection, that could be for the purpose of risk assessment, for marketing campaign, etc. Okay, but here let's focus on picking up the third transaction, right? So now once you are done with sorting the data, all that you need to do is just create a counter, right? And when the customer name changes, again your counter starts from 1. Then say this as well. Okay, so for this also 5 transactions, for this there are just 4 transactions, so this has to be 4. Okay, now once you have this variable created, all that you require to do is go in this filter and pick for the third. So here you got that third transaction for each of the customer. Now let's try to do this in pandas. So here is the data that we have. First thing which we need to do is sort values by, I said by customer name, Here I'm just going to put that, and then tran date. Okay, here is what we have. So the data is sorted now. Next thing which we need to do is need to create the counter variable. So for that, what I will do is I'll create another variable into this in the same data frame, and I will give a name to that variable as counter. And over here what I need to do is I need to use group by function. Alright, group by. If you want to understand how this is working over here, I can explain you, but in another video. Here let's just focus on how to do this. Okay, group by, what is the variable by which we want to create the counter? By customer name, right? So over here I'm just going to say customer name. Alright, I'll just take this, and over here you need to just call this function which is called cum count. Cum means cumulative and count means count, right? So this will create a cumulative count variable. Okay, now let's just see the top 5 records, top 5 records of this data. Here is what we get. Now if you scroll right, here you see the counter. Now if you're seeing 43, 25 and something like that, don't worry about it, because see, it has pandas understand where to give what counter, but here you're just not seeing that. To help you understand well, let me sort this data once again. Let me have this data over here, and over here I will use counter. And now if you see, this is Aaron Wanger, and if you see over here, this is the counter which has been created. 0 1 2 3 4 47, because all the rows we can see, right? So that's how it is looking like this. Now the next problem statement which we had is filter for third transaction, right? So what we're gonna do is tran in, and then we're gonna subset it tran, and over here we're gonna say counter, and over here we can say just 2. Why 2? Because pandas does the indexing from starting from 0. So when you say 0 1 2, 2 is third actually for you, right? So here is what you got. All right, so this is a very interesting problem statement you usually get in your job, right, to do this, right? So here you learned couple of things. First, how to group by the data, then how to sort the data, how to create a counter variable, how to do the filter in data. So just in case if you don't want to do anything, if you just have to filter the data basis on certain column variable, then also this video is going to be helpful for you. Thank you very much for watching. Alright, so the next question, that is the fourth question which we have, is about how would you find the duplicate values in a data frame for a column, right? So note here, it is not asking you to remove the duplicate, but just to find the duplicate values from a data frame, right? And that too is based on one column. Here it's not expecting that you have to find entire row duplicate. You have to find the duplicate basis on just one column. But the same function you can use to do both of the things. Here I will show you with one column. Okay, so here we are in our Jupyter notebook. If you see, this is the data frame that we have. Let's see if we have any duplicate values. So how can you check that? So for example, this is my data frame name, and there is one function which is called duplicated, and you just use this, right? So when you use this, what you see over here, there is no duplicate. It is showing no duplicate because this is working on entire row. So here we're gonna use one parameter which is called a subset. So when I say entire row, that means, let's say if you see over here these two rows, if you see the customer name is duplicate but the entire row is not, because see, tran date is 1st of June and 23rd of June. Same way product line is also different. That's why you didn't get any kind of duplicate in either of these rows, right? So what we do is, here I'm just going to put the customer name. That is one of the variable name, and if you see, now you are getting true. Here it says that it's duplicate, here it says that it is duplicate, here it says that it is duplicate. If you want to take count of this, so what you can use is value counts, right? So here you see 7 are unique and 3 are duplicate. That's what you see. So this is how you can find the duplicates. Next thing, let's say here are 2 rows which are duplicate basis on the customer name. Now if you are finding the duplicate, which row you want to consider as duplicate and which one you want to consider as unique. So for example, if I want to keep this first row as unique, so what I would say is over here I would say keep, and here in that you just need to pass first. So whatever you get over here, that will be for second row. It is not clear over here, right, what exactly it is happening. So what we will do is we will do this. Okay, now you get the rows. So if you see, this is Charles Rodriguez, right, Charles Rodriguez, and over here it is showing you the transaction which was done on 23rd. That means, see, there are two transactions. One was on 1st June, then second one was on 23rd June. So 23rd June is considered as the duplicate transaction, while 1st June is getting considered as the unique one, right? Now you can, if you want, you can reverse this as well. So here you can simply say last, right? So when you say last, then that means if you focus on this particular customer, Charles, so now you see transaction done on 1st of June is considered as the duplicate, and transaction done on 23rd June, that is considered as unique one. Okay, now if you want to store these duplicate values in a different data frame, all that you need to do is just say to give a data frame name and just run this. So here you have a data frame which has duplicate values, right? Now there is another function which is used to remove the duplicates, if you want to understand that also, but that's not part of this question. Here we just wanted to find the duplicates, right? And if you want to understand how to remove the duplicates, let me know in the comment section. I will make a video on that. Thank you very much. Right, everybody, so now here we are at 5th question. Let's have a look at the question, what the question is. So it says, how would you make samples of a data frame for the analysis purpose, right? So the first question comes into the mind if you are not into it much, right? So the first question which will come in your mind is, why do we have to make a sample of it? So let me tell you, usually what happens, you get the size of data which is quite huge. Maybe you might get records in billions or in millions, and it will be difficult to do some initial analysis on this huge size of data. So what we do is we make samples of the data and then perform our analysis, and if it fits to the requirement, then or maybe if it looks significant, then we apply it on the whole data, right? So the whole data is called population, and what you take out of that as a sample, that will be your sample data frame. If you want to have better understanding on what sampling is and what population is, how do we do the sampling, what all are the different techniques of sampling, link is given in the description section. Sorry, what is section? Description section, right? So just check that out. Okay, now let me take you directly to the Jupyter notebook and help you understand how you're gonna do this, right? So here we have this data frame. Now if you see the size of this data frame, then you will get over here we have 1000 records into this data frame and 5 columns. So though the size is not too high, but I'm keeping it I have taken it just for learning purpose, right? But in practical life, when you are working in certain company, you will get the data which will be quite huge in size, let's say 10 million, 12 million, 50 million, or in billions also, right? So that's where it becomes important to make a sample of it, right? So here you see, here I'm just showing top 5 records of the data of those 1000. Now let's say out of this 1000 I want to make a sample of 20 records, right? And those sample I do not want to keep biased, so I want to keep them, I want to make them random. Okay, so how can I do that? So for that what I'll do is this data frame name, and then I can say sample, and let's run this. Okay, so here you see it is just giving you one record. Again you click, it is giving you another record. So if you see, every time you'll get a different record over here, right? But this is just giving you one record. And if you want to make sample of, let's say, 10 records, so what you're going to do is you use a parameter which is called n, right? And you write just 10. So here is what you get. So now you are getting sample of 10 records. Every time you will get the 10 different records, right? Now there is another option. If instead of using 10 number of records, if you want to make it, let's say 10% of the entire data frame, if you want to pick, right? So for that you have a parameter which is called frac, and in that you can just put float, which is 0.10, right? So which is equivalent to 10%, right? Now here you are going to get 10% of the data, which will be 100 rows, which makes sense, right? 10% of 1000 is 100. Okay, so you are getting 100 rows. So this is how you can make sample basis on fraction also. Now there is, again, I will just make it I'll make it back to n equals to 5. So I'll be making a sample of 5 records only. Now if you many of the times it happens when you are making multiple samples, you don't want to repeat the same row in multiple you know, what we call it, samples. Okay, so for that you have another parameter which is called replace, and here you can say false. Okay, so this is going to keep the records, I mean it will not allow the records to be repeated. Now if you make it true, so this will allow the records to be repeated, right? So if you make multiple samples out of this data frame, then this particular parameter will allow you to, you know, keep the same rows. I mean it will allow one rows to come in the multiple you know, samples. Okay, this is how you can use this. Now there is another parameter also which is called random state. If you set it to false, so it will not make the samples random. So usually we don't want to use this because we want to make a random sample, right? So this is how you can make multiple samples of one data frame. If you want me to explain it more, and if you have any particular doubt, put that into the comment section. I'll make a separate video for that. All right, everybody. So the sixth question is, how would you concatenate each element from two lists together and produce a third list? So let me give you certain context. Why could it be required? The simplest fundamental is, let's say if you're working on development of fraud model, so you might have a list of first name and last name. In first name you might get duplicate, right? But mostly it happens when you combine the last name with it, it reduces the duplicate, right? So in that scenario, that's the simplest example which I can tell you, right? For example, this is I'm taking, okay, there could be many instances of this. Okay, without giving you much of the lecture, let me take you to the Jupyter notebook and try to help you understand what exactly the question mean and how can you solve that in Python. All right, so here we are in Jupyter notebook. Considering here you have the list of first names, okay, like I have printed, and here you have list of last names, right? And what you see over here is first name from here and last name from here has been concatenated together, okay? And the same thing has been done for each of the elements. So how this full name was created, that's something which we need to figure out. How can you do that? So for that, what you do is, if you do this, oops, sorry, not this, but this, first name, and usually we do this last name, okay? So usually we use this method to, you know, concatenate two lists. But if you see, it is appending one list at the end of first one. So after Tracy, you would see it's V's getting started. Let me show it to you. You see Tracy, V's is getting started. Let's see if dot append works over here. Over here, let's just see what happens. Oops, this has some other meaning, right? So how to solve this thing? This is a problem. How are you gonna solve that? So for that, you would require to loop through each of the element from both of the lists. So for that, I'm going to say for I in first name, print I, right? So you got that, right? Here you see all the first names are written over here, isn't it? First name. Okay, so because the last name was appended at the end, that's why you see it like this. Okay, now let me do this. Oops. Okay, I'll do this. I'll do this, then this, and then here we go. So here you got the first name. Now the next idea which you can think of is, I will do this for J in last name, okay, and then in that what I can do is I can print I and j. So what's gonna happen, you see, each of the elements are, it is becoming, you know, x into y kind of stuff, right? So first it takes the first name from first list, and that is repeated for all of the elements in the second list. Okay, so that's how it is happening. So that is also not going to work. So what is the solution? So you just need to combine both of these two things together for I comma j in, and here you need to use a function which is called zip. That's the master key over here, right? First name comma last name. You just do this and then just remove this. This is not needed anymore, and you just do this. Here we go. All right, so now if you see, Megan from first list and Wiz from second list has been concatenated. Same goes for Joshua, Levin, right? So that's how it is combined. Now, but we have to create a complete list of it, right? So let's just call it full name. Let's create an empty list of it. Okay, so now we need to put this into that. Let's just say full name. I'm just doing it in you know, absolute beginner way. Now you see this is giving you an error. It says list object is not callable. So what is the solution? Then we can create a variable which is called name, and what we can do is we can say I concatenate space, then again concatenate j, right? And let's try to, let me just comment it for now, and let's try to print name. Yeah, it worked, right? Now here what we can do is we can say full name, full name dot append, and at the end we're gonna print full name. Now this is what we wanted. Exactly, this is what we wanted. So now we had first list, we had second list, and this is third list. So this is how, using the zip function, you can combine each element very easily from both of the lists. Thank you very much for watching the video. Hello everybody, now here we are at the 7th question. Here, given a table named employee and the other table which is named as bonus, you can say BNS also, we might have actual data frame with different name. Here it is just for illustration, but the data frame is correct, just name could be different. Okay, so here is the employee table and here is the bonus table. In the employee table, if you see, if you have salary, target, etc, etc, and here this is particularly bonus table. Okay, so the problem statement is to find the average total compensation based on employee title and gender. Total compensation is calculated by adding both the salary and the bonus of each employee. However, not every employee receives a bonus, so disregard employee without bonus in your calculation. Employee can receive more than one bonus. Output the employee title, gender along with the average total compensation. All right, so let me explain you. Here if you see, you have the employee title, you have the gender, and you have the salary. In this table you have the bonus for this employee. So what you have to do is you have to find the total salary by each of the employee. So employee title, you might see the same titles are getting repeated, so you have to take care of that. Okay, so the final output should look something like this. So if you see over here, the employee title is unique, gender is also unique with combination of employee title, and here is the total salary, but this is average. For example, if we talk about here, you have 3 managers, you can see, and here whatever you are seeing, that's the average of all the female managers. Okay, so you have to keep this as average, right? So now let me take you to the Jupyter notebook and try to help you understand this well. All right, I'm again at the board itself. Okay, so here we are. Now here you have the bonus data and here you have the employee data. Okay, so in employee data, if you see how many records that you have 30 records. Okay, and 13 columns. Now again I'll bring a sample of this, and in the bonus table you have 8 records. Now if you see, employee IDs are getting repeated, so we have to take care of this thing also. So first thing first, we need to summarize this table first. Once this is summarized, then we require to merge it with this table, and once that is done, then we need to find the total salary, and then we need to summarize the data again. So let's start with summarizing the bonus table. So for that, we would say bonus dot group by, and into that we are going to put this particular column, and here I would say sum, and here is what we got, right? You see, now you have unique IDs and their bonus are added. One more thing which I would do is reset index, so that I could make it a data frame. Now once this is converted to the data frame, I'm going to store it in a table called bonus, and then I will again print this data. All right, this is done. Next thing which we need to do is we need to merge bonus data with this one. The unique key over here is manager ID or ID. Which one? It's ID, because this is unique. You can see this is duplicate. All right, so we will use this one. Let me show you how to merge the data. So we can say pd.merge, and in that we're gonna say left table will be employee data, and then right table will be bonus data, and then we want to say left on, because you see in both of the we have the common column, but both are having different name. So in left table you have the column named as, you have the common column named as ID, and in the right table you have it named as worker reference ID. Let me see if I can paste it. Okay, no, I need to take it from here and I will just paste it over here. Okay, now if you see in many of the merging, if you have worked on SAS, then to merge the data it is important that you have the columns with same name, but here that's not the challenge. Okay, now here you need to specify what sort of joining that you want to do. So here we're gonna use inner join, because it said in the question, it was mentioned that we need to disregard those customers who have no bonus. Okay, disregard those employees, not the customers. So here you're gonna say how equals to inner. All right, so I think this is done. Let's just run this. Yeah, so here is what we got. How many records did we get? 5, which does make sense, because here we have bonus for only 5 employees. Okay, now the next thing which we require to do is add both of these two columns, bonus and the salary. So let me just store it in a data frame called merge df, and then what you can do is inside that you can create a variable called total salary, and after that I am going to say merge df. Inside that I am going to take salary and plus. There could be many ways of doing this. I am finding it simplest to explain. Okay, and then here you can say bonus, and if you see, it should have a column created total salary. Let's just see that. Yeah, here we got that. Okay, now the next thing which we're gonna do is summarize that. In summary, we require employee title, and we require gender, which is X column over here, and then we require the average of total salary. So let's just say here we are going to use pivot table. Pivot table. In this you need to pass on the index parameter, which is index, that means whatever we want to see over here, right? That's what we're gonna supply over here. So here we require 2 things, which is employee title, just right over here, and then the next thing which we require is this. And then what next thing you're gonna pass is values. In values, which column you want to use. So in that I want to use total salary, because on this I want to perform the calculation. What is the column on which you want to perform the calculation? That comes in values. And what is the columns on which you want to group? That comes under index. Then what is the calculation formula or aggregation function that you want to use? That comes over here, agg func. The parameter is agg func. By default it is mean, so even if you don't specify this, that's gonna work. but here I will explain it because I have to make you understand. Now when you run this, it is giving the error. Why is that so? Let's just figure it out. Here it says AGG, okay, spelling error. And now when you run this, here is what we get. And now you can say reset index, reset index, and then let's run this. So here's what we get. For auditors, how many rows that we have? 4 rows. In the output we required 4 rows. Okay, auditors 2200, auditors 2200, manager this. So you solved it, right? So in this question what we learned is how to merge the tables, how to summarize that using group by, and how to summarize that using pivot table. So here 2 summarization we did, this one, and there is one which we did using group by over here. Okay, and here we did the merging. I just hope that you liked it. Thank you very much for watching. 8th question. Here we need to write a function to generate n samples from a normal distribution and plot them on the histogram. So there are a couple of things into it. First, you have to generate a series or list of random numbers, and then you have to plot them on histogram, right? So let me take you to the Jupyter notebook and try to help you understand. Alright, so here we are in our Jupyter notebook, and if you see over here, so let me try to explain you first in layman term, okay, and then I will try to explain you how to define the function for this thing, okay, and make it dynamic. So first thing you would require to import 2 libraries. First is NumPy. So I would take them one by one. As of now I'm just importing NumPy, and after that I'll import the other one which is needed. Okay, so as of now, to generate the random numbers, right, so what you need to do is np.random, you need to call this module, and then inside that because we have to create the normal distribution and we require the normally distributed random numbers. Okay, now in that it takes 3 parameters. First, what is the point that you want to start from, then what is the end point. So we require the random numbers between 0 to 1, right, and how many data points that you want to get. So let's say I want to get 10 random points. Now let's just hit enter. Here you got. So if you see, all the values are between 0 to 1, and if you see, these are 10 in count. 1 2 3 4 5 to the 10. Okay, now if you want, you can make it 20 as well. Whatever you want you can make. So this is the value will be of n, which user should have facility or flexibility to pass on, and it should automatically draw a normal distribution. Now the point comes, how to draw a normal distribution. For that we require to import one more library. Here I would use visualization library, which is Seaborn as SNS. If you want, you can use matplotlib as well, but I prefer to use Seaborn dot histplot, and that's it. Now you just draw this. Here is what you got, normally distributed. Now if you make it 50, so here is how it's gonna look. Now the many times you hit enter, the different kind of chart you're gonna get, because you know this is generating the random numbers, that's why. So here it was in layman term. Now how would you make it automated? So for that, what you need to do is you need to define a function, def rand dist, I would say rand distribution, and here I would pass the parameter n, and that is it, and this I will just replace with n. Okay, now after this, what you need to do is just call this function, which is rand distribution, and in that you just provide the number of elements that you would like to have, right, in your list, and just hit enter. So here you got that. Okay, if you want to have it 40, you can just make it 40, and here is what you got. If you want to have it 10, you can just make it 10, and here is what you got, right? So this was the problem statement. This is very helpful when you want to create some dummy data and check the normal distribution or something like that. So in data science it is very helpful and very useful. We end up using quite often. Okay, now this is what the problem statement was, and we solved that. Thank you very much for watching. Alright everybody, So here we are going to have a look at 9th question. Here it says write a function for F1 score that takes the true positive, false positive, true negative and false negative as input and outputs the F1 score, right? So this is what you're gonna solve. Now when you're working on this question, I believe that you're already familiar with these terms. What is precision, recall, false positive, true positive, false negative, true negative, and what of F1 score is, right? Just in case if you are not familiar with this thing, I highly recommend you to check out our data science playlist, and in that you have this video, this comprehensive video. Like you can see, this is of 17 minutes long video. Okay, so it covers everything end to end, and after watching this, I'm damn sure you would have very good clarity on this, right? And once you are done with watching this thing, I highly recommend you watch either of these two videos. Over here, over there, I have tried to cover the practical example of precision recall, true positive, true positive, false positive, and all those things, right? So after watching these videos, you would have very good concept of all these things. Okay, when you are watching this video, you can, if you want, you can directly skip to the last one if you are already familiar with data science regression techniques and all those things, right? But I recommend you to check out this video at least, so that you would have a very good understanding, just in case if you don't know this thing already. Okay, but if you know, and you here, if you just want to understand how to code that in Python, then I'm directly going to take you that. So other than that, here is the presentation which has the formula to calculate F1 score. This is what we're gonna use. All right, and here is the formula to calculate the precision and recall. So this is what we're gonna use given the true positive, false positive, and true negative and false negative values are as input. And we find this F1 score. We find this F1 score in both of the context, means where for positive things and for negative outcome, for both of the outcomes. Okay, for example, if you see here, 0 means that's no fraud and 1 means fraud. So for fraud also, if you see, we have calculated the F1 score, and for 0 also the F1 score has been calculated. But this was done using the modules and libraries. Here what we're going to do is we're going to calculate it ourselves. Okay, we will be writing the code to calculate it. Like you can see here, I have assigned the values for true positive, false positive, true negative, and false negative. Let's start with calculating recall. Okay, so here I'm just going to say recall. So the formula for recall is for true positive things. Okay, when we say formula for recall, so we are trying to find wherever it is positive outcome, and for that we are trying to find the recall. So if whatever I'm saying, if that is confusing you, I highly recommend you to go ahead and watch this video again. So now to find the recall for positive outcomes, we would say true positive divided by true positive plus false positive. So this is what the formula is to find the recall. Okay, let's just try. So here you see, you get recall of true positive plus false positive will be denominator, and true positive will be numerator. So what we are getting is 0.54. So let's see if this is what we had over here as well. Do we have precision and recall? Yes, you see over here where for the fraud cases, wherever the model is predicting it as fraud, the precision is 0.55, which is approximately the same which we just calculated. Okay, this is what. Now let's call the recall. Oops, this will be precision. I'm sorry, I just wrote it incorrectly, right? So this is precision, not recall. Okay, and now I'm going to write the formula for recall, and that formula will be true positive divided by true positive plus false negative. All right, and then we calculate the recall. So this is what we are getting, 0.72. Let's just have a look on this. You see, 0.72 we have got the recall. So that means it is working fine. Okay, so we are done with calculating the precision and recall. Now let's try to find the formula where we take the input, we make it dynamic and take the input from the user, right? So here is what I'm going to write: def f1 score and in that I will pass the value true positive, true negative, false positive, false negative, and I would say F1 for, means for what condition we want to find it, for positive or for negative. Okay, and after that what we're gonna do is, so it is very important, if you are asked in the interviewer, if your interviewer asks you to write the F1 score formula, so you just ask him for whether he wants you to write this thing for positive cases or for negative cases, then you will be able to make it well. Otherwise here I'm just going to make it for both, right? So if I would say if F1 underscore for equals to positive, then do this. All right, then do this, otherwise else do and here I would say F1 score needs to be written. Okay, so for F1 score formula is, like you can see over here, here is the formula, 2 into precision into recall divided by precision plus recall. So here I would say 2 into, inside the bracket I would say precision into recall, and then let's enclose this into the bracket, and this divided by, again I'll keep a bracket over here, precision plus recall. Okay, so whatever comes sum up over here, that will be used as denominator, this will be numerator, and whatever comes out of this, that will be F1 score, and here I will just return the F1 score. Okay, F1 score, right? So this is the same thing I would repeat for this part. Here we go. The only difference here we are going to make is because this will be for negative, right? So true negative divided by true negative plus false negative, and for recall we're gonna say true negative divided by true negative plus false positive. Okay, now that is it. So that's it. Oops, there seemed to be some problem. If F1 for equals, oops, here I just need to do this. Okay, that is it. Now after that what we're gonna do is we will just take this here, and here I'm just going to say F1, oops, F1 score, and what I can do is, because I have the same naming convention, so I will use the same thing. Okay, over here, and here I will say positive, and let's hit run. So you see for positive what we get is 0.62. let's just validate if this is correct. Oh, it's correct. You see 0.62 is the F1 score. Here is the F1 score, this is the positive term, and here is what we got. Let's try for negative, right? Let's try it for negative. Here is what we got, 0.99, which will be approximately 1, and here is what we have. Alright, so this is what precision and recall and F1 score is in a nutshell. Hope you liked it. Thank you very much for watching the video. Alright everybody, so here we are at the 10th question, which is the last question in this series. Right, so here we have included this question where it says explain the zip and enumerate function. Trust me, this is not a very difficult question, but because while we were doing the research, we found that it is included in many of the lists on different blocks, right? So that's where I thought of including this in this particular list, and I'll try to explain you. Now about the zip function, that's something which I have explained with practical example in this 6th question, right? You see over here in this question I have explained this, which will be released on 28th September. I highly recommend you to set reminder for this and check it out. You would love this. Okay, now still, because we have this question, I would try to give a brief about this and will explain enumerate as well. To understand enumerate, I would highly encourage you to go ahead and check out this playlist, EDA playlist. In this I have effectively used enumerate function, and you would see what are the practical examples I have used over there to create subplots. Okay, but you will understand, you will get a very good understanding over there. So let's begin. Okay, so for example, over here you have a given two list, first name and last name. So what zip does is zip will combine both of these two lists in a way that each of the element will pair up together. Okay, what I mean is when you zip both of these two lists, Megan from here and Wish from here will be combined and will make a single tuple. Okay, and ultimately you will get a list of multiple tuples. Just in case if you have one larger list and one shorter list, so zip will stop by the length of shorter list. Okay, now let me try to help you understand what zip does. Okay, so for example, over here I would say zip, inside that I'm going to say first name comma last name. All right, and let's see, you don't understand anything over here, right? So how can we make this work, right? So for that we're going to say for x comma y in zip this print x comma y. You see now what you get, like you can see over here, both of the each element from both of the lists are combined together. Okay, so this is what zip does. It simply combines each element together out of the given list, right? So whenever we are using zip, we must at least have two lists, right? And it will combine each of the element from both of the lists, okay, together. Now when it comes to enumerate, I'll try to explain you the enumerate function. So what enumerate does is it takes single list and creates list of tuples. Okay, for example, if you talk about the last name over here, if you talk about the last name over here, what you see is single word in each of the element. But when you enumerate this, it will concatenate their indexing position along with each of the element and will make a list of tuples. What I mean is, let's figure it out. Last name, you see these are the list. Now when you do enumerate, and let's just do this. Okay, so you will, if you hit run, you will get nothing. Now what you're gonna do is you say for I in enumerate, and then you just say print I, and now what you see is, like you can see, this is the indexing position 0 base 1 11, right? So for each of the element it is prefixing its index position, and that's how you are getting a list of tuples, right? So you see this is a tuple, this is a tuple, right? Somebody calls it tuple, so no matter how you pronounce it, it's gonna remain same. So this is what the difference between zip and enumerate is. Zip combines each element from the given list together, and enumerates creates list of tuples in which it concatenates the index position of each of the element with the element. Okay, this is what it is in a nutshell. I just hope that you understood it. Just in case of any difficulty, put that into the comment section. I would love to explain that. Alright, with this we end this particular series. Thank you very much for watching this, and I hope you enjoyed. If yes, just give us a thumbs up to encourage us, and subscribe it and share with your friends. Thanks once again.